requirement NWEA MAP as the measure of literacy. Eliminate the requirement to report the number of classes taught by a substitute teacher for more than 25% of the school year due to redundancy and burden on reporting.
Oh, bull.
Remove the requirement to report vacancies for support staff as the state is not currently collected. And the commission also recommends, so we've recommended some modification to some of the metrics that were prescribed, and we're recommending some additional metrics for consideration. Per pupil total expenditures by local education agency and school, per pupil revenues by pupil-centered funding plan fund category, per pupil expenditures and percentage of total expenditures by the highest level function codes. This is from an accounting standpoint, higher level reporting as opposed to lower level reporting. Per pupil expenditures by highest level object code, full-time employee counts, and per student ratios by function. So these are additional metrics that we're recommending adding. And the point of all of this is to take those metrics that were identified in SB 98 and AB 400 and based on the reporting that we know is done today and the data that is available today, most of those metrics do work and reporting is available. There's some metrics for which reporting is not currently available and a reporting system would have to be developed. And there were additional metrics that the commission felt would add to the value of the combination of the metrics and becoming a predictive model for student performance on a going forward basis. And again, I know I ran through that fairly quickly. Hopefully it'll be a bit more orderly when it's all presented in the report to you all. All of these recommendations with respect to metrics all feed into the performance reporting framework that we're currently working on, which we understood to be one of the primary items requested of the commission by you all during our work this interim. So with that, I'd be happy to address any questions you have, comments. I'm certainly happy to be here, and we'll continue our work.
Thank you. That was perfect. A nice high-level view of where we are, where we need to be, and so we will continue to do our work and look forward to future information coming from the committee. With that, I know we do have a question in the north, so we'll go to Assembly Member LaRue Hatch.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you so much for this presentation. I think a theme we're seeing throughout the day is that we're just duplicating a lot of efforts, and I appreciate identifying where we can streamline those. I had a question specifically about class size. As you know, we have the largest class sizes in the nation, and it's a serious concern. I and several others have classes of 45 students in each of our 6 classes, and we need to tackle it. I understand why we might want to remove that requirement of reporting it when there's nothing we can do about it right now, but what is your proposal for ensuring that we are tackling it? Because I am concerned that if we're not looking at it, what's going to be done to make sure it's not forgotten?
Thank you very much for the question, Guy Hobbs, Commission on School Funding. And if I had to pick one bullet point out of this entire presentation where I thought there might be a question, that was the one. Because, you know, we all recognize the importance of achieving the class size standards that the state has set forth. We do realize that our inability to reach those in many cases so far is a function of funding, as I explained earlier. I don't know that not reporting the class size information is necessarily the best course to take, notwithstanding the recommendation of the commission. I'm speaking to it more from the aggregation of all of the different metrics, including that one, into an overall performance reporting framework. Now, it may not fit within that overall performance reporting framework, but it is a piece of data that I believe you all would still want very much to have. and to be able to gauge progress on over time. Hopefully that answer makes sense. So it may
No,
be
you're not gonna
useful
be able to do
for
this.
one application.
'Cause we
not
do have
necessarily
tools.
as useful for the performance
Mhm.
framework reporting.
That does clarify a great deal. Thank you so much.
Clarifies that great deal.
Anyone else in Carson City with questions?
I'll jump in if I may, Chair.
Why did I even put that?
You tr- And it didn't work. So has the commission discussed at all, testing requirements, or is that something that you are allowing the department and the districts to make those decisions about? In particular, when there seems to be dual tests that are testing the exact same information. And yet both, one is required at the state level and a school district might be making the decision to utilize a different one.
Thank you very much for the question, Assemblywoman Anderson. And this is one of those places where I want to be very cautious. And we have been limited to the metrics that were prescribed to us by SB 98 and AB 400. We do have the latitude to recommend metrics beyond that. But as you get into the realm of testing, myself not being a professional educator,
Yeah, you're not an educator.
that would be something where I would be inclined to invoke my phone a friend privileges. Megan Peterson with Nevada Department of Education, I know, is in Carson City, and she may be able to add more color to that.
Phone a friend.
Assemblywoman, is she approaching? Okay, great.
Deputy Superintendent Megan Peterson for the record. As Chair Hobbs had mentioned, a lot of the work currently, as it was prescribed under AB 400, SB 98 and NRS 387, did not add that to the contemplation of the work this biennium. And given the scope of the work and making sure we get it right and really be as effective as possible with the data that we have.
You're
The
playing with the
commission has
data that you have, but we don't have to,
explored that
we
area.
don't have to
do
accept the data that you've chosen to collect.
areas.
That's real.
It's not within our scope.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Chair Hobbs as well, because Lord knows, looking through the 4 pages of what you guys have been asked to do, I think you've got a lot. So thank you, Chair, for that much time.
So now we are in Las Vegas. Not seeing any questions. I just, a theme that has come up over and over is the implementation of artificial intelligence and what that's going to look like. And so possibly one of the easier things, an easier bite at the apple might be using AI technologies to figure out where the duplication of getting these results, because that's something that when you would look at man hours could take a ton of man hours, but when you, put all the different ways we gather that information into AI, it might give us something back that we can actually really work with in our next legislative session. So just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you so much for being here. We look forward to hearing from you some more. Okay. Next, we will go to agenda item number 7. We'll hear about some of the teacher pipeline efforts outlined in AB 428, specifically consideration and removal of barriers to scholarships for teachers and educational personnel. We have NDE and WestEd to present this item, and NSHE representatives are available as well. First, we have Jeff Brisky with NDE. You look like you have a friend as well. So please introduce yourself and go ahead when ready.
Well, Director Brisky's doing the important work right now, so I'll introduce myself. Andrew Morrill with WestEd. Thanking Chair Bilbray Axelrod and the members of the committee for hearing from us today. We are just about, I think we're ready.
Right, thanks for your patience and good afternoon, Chair Bilbe Axelrod and Vice Chair Lang and the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Education. My name is Jeff Brisky, Director of the Office of Educator Development, Licensure, and Family Engagement at the Nevada Department of Education. I'm here with my colleagues, as you had mentioned earlier, from the Nevada System of Higher Education at the table in the north, and with my colleague from West Ed here in the south. Thank you again for the opportunity to share an overview of Nevada's educator scholarships.
And I'm sorry, do you have a PowerPoint that we should be seeing? We're not seeing it yet, so, okay, wait. Can you guys see that in the audience?
We're not able to see it in Carson.
Okay. All right, now we are good. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. The Teach Nevada Scholarship was established with Senate Bill 511 during the 2015 session and as recorded in NRS 391A. It provides funding for tuition, books, and fees for pre-service educators wishing to obtain their initial licensure. It is awarded by the State Board of Education to educator preparation programs, who then in turn grant scholarships to students. The Nevada Teacher Advancement Scholarship was established with Assembly Bill 400 during the 2023 session in NRS 391A. It provides funding for tuition, books, and fees for in-service educators wishing to obtain a master's degree in education or related field. Again, is awarded by the State Board of Education to educator preparation programs, who then in turn grant scholarships to students. The incentivizing Pathways to Teaching program was federally funded with this is a mouthful, the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Dollars, specifically the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act of 2021, or in short, ESSER 2. During fiscal years 22 and 23, it did transition and was established in Assembly Bill 515, sponsored by the Ways and Means Committee during the 2023 session with general state funds, and is now in NRS 391A. This program provides funding for tuition and paid clinical experience for pre-service educators finishing their educator preparation program. For Teach Nevada Scholarship, we know how many students graduated and completed their programs, but we do not know of these cohorts who obtained employment at Nevada Public School for years 1 through 5. After year 5, educators apply for their 25% reimbursement, and it is at this point that we know how many scholarship recipients work in a Nevada Public School for 5 years. On this slide, you can see there are 836 graduates so far, and of those 50 who have stayed for 5 years met all the requirements and received their 25% reimbursement. This number may seem low, but we do need to remember that this is a 9-year investment, 4 for prep program, 5 for employment, and the additional requirements to receive the 25% are strict. I have asked staff to manually research scholarship recipient graduates who are employed in our public schools going back to the inception of this program. This will help us determine the effectiveness of the program and the retention. Moving forward, the data match that's planned with the Nevada System of Higher Education student numbers and license numbers within our new licensing system will allow us to track all 5 years and beyond. For the Nevada Teacher Advancement Scholarship, this is the first year of implementation and no students have yet completed their master's degree. This slide illustrates how many awards were given by the department with federal dollars and how many of those awards were requested for reimbursement. The differences may be due to several factors, such as more scholarships awards were available than there were students. Other funding sources were already in place, or students declined the scholarships. And this slide shows how many awards were granted by the State Board of Education for FY24 using the general fund dollars. When this slide deck was prepared, the final date for request for reimbursement for this scholarship had not yet occurred. So final reconciliation will be completed in September. Here are the state funding for each of the three scholarships, scholarship buckets, the allocation for FY '24, the request from prep institutions, and awards by the state board. On the first row, the Teach Nevada Scholarship had enough carryover funding from previous fiscal years to be able to award all requests. The Nevada Teacher Advancement Scholarship Awards were decreased by 5.5% due to limited funding. And the Incentivizing Pathways to Teaching Awards were decreased by 14% due to limited funding initially. But with the help of the Department of Education Training Rehabilitation, they contributed $1.1 million to help make up that difference,
We
allowing
didn't took the
NDE
rehab
to
money and
fulfill.
put it over there to the teach money. That's
The
good.
state funding for FY '25 allowed the State Board of Education to award about 40% of what was requested for Teach Nevada Scholarship.
Mhm.
On 91% of what was requested for the Nevada Teacher Advancement Scholarship and 74% of what was requested for Incentivizing Pathways to Teaching. As you can see, the demand is exceeding funding. What does this mean in student numbers? Combining all three scholarships, there was a request for approximately 3,100 scholarships, and we were able to only fulfill 1,851. So a little bit less than 2/3. And this graph is showing funding and request trends for fiscal years '24 and '25. The dark blue and green are allocations. The orange and light blue are the request. Shortages, as you can see here, if you want the numbers, Teach Nevada Scholarship, we're short about $3.7 million.
Mhm.
And if the interim finance committee does give the department the full 3.2 million of contingency funding, we will still have a shortfall of about $500,000 available to match the request for FY '25.
Mhm.
The Nevada Teacher Advancement Scholarship is short about 9.4% or $200,000. And Incentivizing Pathways to Teaching was short 26.5% or about $2.4 million. Theater funding may not be available nor sustainable for FY '25 and beyond. Transitioning, the department did engage and contract with our partners at NSHE and WestEd to conduct a study on the barriers to scholarship opportunities as required by Assembly Bill 428, Section 9. And at this point, I will turn it over to my colleague to present their findings for consideration.
For the record, again, Andrew Morrill with WestEd, and we're just going to change slide decks very quickly. Yeah. As Director Brisky mentioned, WestEd played a role in gathering data. According to the objective you see on the screen, you see the members of the WestEd team as well. Just background, WestEd is a nonpartisan, nonprofit agency that conducts and applies research, develops evidence-based solutions, and provides services and resources in education, human development, and related fields to improve outcomes and ensure equity for individuals from infancy through adulthood. Specifically, NDE engaged WestEd to examine the barriers to scholarship opportunities and identify considerations for expanding access to those scholarships as required and outlined by Assembly Bill 428. So in the process of gathering what largely was to become perception data from the higher ed community in Nevada, we directed our work according to two guiding questions for the qualitative data and for submission of the report. What barriers exist at the state, program, and candidate level of the processes related to the Teach Nevada Scholarship, Incentivizing Pathways to Teaching, and Nevada Teacher Advancement Scholarship? And the second question, of course, what potential solutions can be implemented to mitigate the barriers that had been identified through this work? I want to thank NDE, Director Brisky, and the staff at EdLife. They played several instrumental roles in allowing us to gather the data in service to the task that was outlined, including a robust perception gathering process that really occurred in two stages with 17 individuals, as you see on the screen, from the educator prep programs and from the Nevada system of higher education. leadership to engage in listening sessions and follow-up interviews. Now, you see the institutions that were involved in that, but just a word on the process. The listening sessions were the first attempt, and these would involve 4 to 5 different representatives from various ed prep programs.
They didn't involve the African American.
Guided by those
community.
two overarching
we were
questions,
just
then with follow-up questions to unpack
Yeah,
different
we-
areas, as you'll see in a moment.
Unpack, but
And
can't
then we
explain
followed
why
those listening
data is
sessions
not
with
working
very
for you.
specific interviews, attempting to dig deeper into the information that we've obtained in the
Sure.
first round. That being explained, let's take a look at a little bit more. The advantage to this approach, which we vetted and collaborated with NDE on, was that it provided a
Trying to
variety of
hide what you're
perspectives
doing.
from the programmatic, the operational, and the fiscal administration perspectives. As you know, when you gather perception data, you have to be very careful to be inclusive of a variety of perceptions that round out the full portfolio of
Everybody,
information.
Perception data.
Listening sessions produced initial themes of barriers. These were tested with the data received so that no outliers, no singleton responses went much further than the first round. The interviews with programs and program representatives allowed for the testing, clarifying, and the refining of the perception data we've been gathering to identify the barriers and the considerations for mitigating them. So again, things were tested along the way, refined and clarified to be sure that they really were representative perceptions of the institutions and the ed prep programs which we were working. And you have a resulting report in addition to this slide deck presentation. The report is a little more thorough and goes into a little more detail on each barrier identified, on the process, and then on the considerations for mitigating the barriers that were identified. The initial round of themes that were then the substance that produced the listening sessions and interviews were, as you see, they covered a wide variety of areas: fiscal and administrative challenges and processes, complexity and clarity, which shouldn't surprise anybody because these are state programs and they just of their own nature involve some complexity, marketing and awareness, length of process and some timelines involved in the scholarships, communication out to the field, and then accessibility and eligibility restrictions. And I'll say a little bit about each of these, and then later at your direction, stand for questions. Fiscal administration of the scholarships currently does create uncertainty and inefficiencies. And I want to stress again that this is perception data. This is the data that was presented and refined and clarified by your ed prep programs across the state. Procedures used for administering scholarships are the same employed for K-12 LEA grants. And this presents some problems just in alignment with different procedures that aren't quite the same when you're talking about the IHEs, the Institutes of Higher Ed, and their ed prep programs versus the way K-12 LEAs operate. They create complications with procedures. And also, I want to stress, this is inclusive of your alternative route providers. Many of these are in financial accounting. They are technical. We have some folks in attendance today who, when we're addressing questions, can probably provide some more specific information. But it's a little bit of a case of different accounting languages being spoken or different unit of measurements driving some procedures, both in the EPPs versus the K-12. The programs report financial recording and accounting misalignment with institutes of higher ed, the IHEs, and your alternative certification program procedures. The annual reapproval of ed prep programs, including their budgets, budget modifications, and other required documents, is seen to be cumbersome and causing delays. And as you heard a moment ago in the previous presenter, in a different context,
They should be
there
forgetting.
are funding needs. There's currently no funding to support the administration of the 3 scholarships. And this creates administrative expectations that, when unfunded, are perceived as additional burdens. Another area of barriers reported it extends to receiving information in fragments or what is perceived as fragmented information, leading to, at times, a lack of clarity about processes and procedures, including funding timelines. What this means is the programs have to reapply each year.
That's right.
Revisions to those processes
How you
occur
guys
regularly,
make the money more
leading to less
predictable
clarity about
because it
required
ain't
photo
gonna happen.
applications
Not after.
and approval as grant subrecipients and about reimbursement requests. So where there are changes, as often happen, they're not always evenly communicated. Nevertheless, the process, the programs must engage in applications each year, and there can be some disconnects there. And while programs report great appreciation, stress for the responsiveness and the availability of NDE staff, we heard that time and again across your ed prep programs from their representatives, especially when they need assistance. They also perceive that unexpected changes create additional administrative burdens that make it difficult for programs to plan effectively and allocate resources efficiently. Timeline challenges are also seen as an area of barriers, creating significant logistical and financial difficulties for EPPs and for teacher candidates. So it's not just at the ed prep program level, but there's impact to the individual candidates who, after all, are the beneficiary of the scholarships that you've created. Approval of each scholarship appropriation by the State Board of Ed occurs in a wide range of months, as early as March, but as late as November, which has resulted in recipients being notified in some cases of approval after the semester has started, well into the semester, in fact. Consequently, candidates are left in an unenviable position. They have to cover the tuition and fees, with reimbursements often coming much later, delayed for several months. Now, you do have programs in Nevada that try to handle this by using their own funds up front to ensure that candidates don't have to pay that tuition and face that burden. In other words, they're supplementing. But that option is only available among some of your programs. Many simply lack that budget capacity and can't extend that aid to candidates. And that leaves the candidates paying the fees out of pocket and waiting for reimbursement. You've heard a few presentations today explaining the financial constraints and context of those who would be teachers in Nevada already. And this adds, unfortunately, to that sense of financial burden to become a teacher. There are different ranges of challenges that were identified. This one also extends to some delays, some unintended delays experienced by candidates in their field experience, the distribution of scholarship funds during the field experience, which is, after all, required in your programs, that field experience. The incentivizing pathways is intended to cover expenses during student teaching, as we heard. As students really find it difficult to work during this time. Some do, but it's a real burden when you consider the demands learning to become a teacher. And due to funding timelines, these candidates typically receive this compensation in one lump sum payment at the end of a semester. That leaves them uncompensated for most of that semester, despite receiving a lump sum at the end. And the delays experienced at this really crucial time, which is often toward the end of one's program, can significantly impact their ability to complete their programs, just based on the financial hardship and an unfortunate timing.
How unfortunate that they didn't think about this.
The ed
before
prep
they set
program
aside money
representatives
for the
shared
program.
also
Right.
some concerns about new requirements. One of these is that the Teach Nevada scholarship requires its candidates to hold a Nevada issue high school diploma. And that has
That's
proven to
saying
be
they just
a
want
pretty
their
significant
people to
constraint.
benefit.
Requirements excluded groups of viable candidates, often career changers, who are now Nevada residents, but who attended high school in another state.
Right.
And
They can, that's
it
why they
actually
can't teach it.
eliminates those
That's
who hold a
insane.
GED, since it specifies a high school diploma.
That's
In
pretty.
fact, following this eligibility change, which is fairly recent, as I understand it, one program saw its numbers drop from 50 new teachers annually to more like 10.
Yeah.
Because this their program was focused on nationwide talent, but you had this restriction to a Nevada issued high school diploma.
Yeah, that's insane.
There's one other, which is that
Yeah, let's talk about what
the
they're doing.
Nevada Teacher Advanced advancement scholarship is limited to a master's degree. Does
Mhm.
not allow for other advanced degrees, and it doesn't allow currently for advanced training in critical shortage areas.
Oh, isn't that amazing? So what are they really doing? Let's just.
There are as well restrictions about the use of the scholarship funds.
Mm-hmm.
Teach Nevada and the Nevada Teacher Advancement Scholarship cover tuition and they cover related fees. But recipients may not combine these funds with other financial aid that is intended for the same expenses. These restrictions limit candidates from applying the funds to other higher education and teacher preparation costs, basically living costs, including housing, transportation, while they are in their programs. Nevada scholarships are also restricted in another sense to degree completion, excluding advanced training outside of a degree program. Now, teachers who seek advancement seek it in a number of ways, in a number of contexts that are not always involved with post-grad programs. Many teachers seek endorsements, such as teaching students with special needs or reading endorsements, math endorsements, but they can access these scholarships only if they're enrolled in a full graduate program. And this restriction prevents a lot of educators from obtaining specialized training that LEAs often identify as a need. And that has the effect long-term of increasing shortages in some of these critical teaching areas. And one that you've heard addressed all day long, that I think I probably just need to mention very, very briefly. We have across this nation a terrible identity crisis with the profession of teaching. You've heard about it from a number of sources, so I won't labor the point. But you can find it in evidence, research across the country. Nevada is subject to it. Your neighboring states are subject to it. The teaching profession's perception has changed drastically over the years. It now bears a stigma of being unaffordable, underappreciated, oftentimes infeasible to compete or to complete requirements. Your scholarships in Nevada are offered primarily to students who are already enrolled in education programs. So there may be other opportunities that we'll talk about in a moment to broaden the public message about teaching. But the fact is the scholarships themselves do not add to the number of people pursuing degrees. At least the data doesn't suggest it, but it does serve those who have chosen to become Nevada teachers. Now, there were two charges, and the second one was to identify or outline considerations to mitigate the barriers that I've just shared with you. These are also detailed in the report. You see an outline of them on the screen. And because I've gone into some background about each barrier, I won't take as much time outlining the considerations for how to address those. But you see those there on the screen, and we can unpack each one of those.
They're always talking about their scholarships.
Perception
They're
is
not talking about the failure of the children who are generating the money. That's
the
what they're
annual
not
plan
talking
that
about.
clearly communicates processes, procedures, and requirements to the ed prep programs will be of benefit. In
Mhm.
fact, you can use the expectations and benchmarks communicated in the annual plan to generate annual reports on the management of
There
the
is.
funds.
This is
the
West Ed doing,
experiences
see,
of
this
the
is
ed
West Ed doing
programs.
the training. But
The
they should be
experience-
doing the training for the public schools. They're not
the
doing any
impact
training.
overall
This is it.
scholarships and their intended outcomes.
And they're just talking about
In addition,
scholarships. They're not talking about the children.
Recommendation
who
is
are
to
generating
include
the federal
a
dollars.
reliable and accurate timeline for each phase of the administration process. It's very possible that elements of this already exist. So this recommendation should be taken as a call to possibly revisit and revise.
They don't
those.
have an annual
And
plan
so doing
that
it,
is inclusive of
APPs
everyone.
Inform scholarship recipients of their award no later than the summer before the fall semester. Implement financial protocols that allow students participating in year-round programs to receive scholarships starting in the spring semester, and ensure programs receive funding, before the beginning of the semester. Going on to considerations in other areas, and I know I'm going through these quickly, but again, they're more detailed in the report. Develop or utilize existing fiscal processes where they exist, possibly revisit and refine them to facilitate the distribution of state funds to the ed prep programs themselves through scholarships.
Mhm.
facilitate timely compensation of students, such as through paid internships or work study. These are structures.
Let's see how this
that
works.
That would allow for the more timely
I think
payment
we need to share
of
this with
candidates during their
IDEA.
experience. And you have
There we
examples
go.
of this in the state now. And facilitate the distribution of state scholarship funds to education prep programs, again, borrowing from successes that Nevada already has.
Mhm.
For example, Nevada Promise or the Millennium Scholarships. So you may actually be able to use examples that currently exist as you revisit these. And fund the indirect costs to the education prep programs. The administrative workload, which is considerable, of coordinating and managing the scholarships requires significant resource capital, normally in the form of human capital. And the indirect cost included in the appropriation could give the Ed Prep program partners, especially the smaller institutions, increased capacity to administer the scholarships and recruit more candidates by being more responsive to them. There are a number of strategies to increase the number of candidates, which after all addresses the challenge that you've been hearing about and that you know so well regarding the teacher shortage in Nevada. Direct a portion of the scholarship appropriation to fund a statewide promotional campaign that promotes entry into the teaching profession and interest in utilizing scholarships to fund preparation. Change the eligibility requirements or consider changing them to eliminate the requirement of a Nevada high school diploma. That recommendation is not made lightly. There are all kinds of implications, but it's worthy of consideration. Make scholarships available for advanced training and advanced degrees rather than limiting them to the sole master's degree pursuit.
They're just trying to make sure that
Scholarships
the kids can,
integrate with
I mean,
other
the ones that are
financial aid to
benefiting.
broaden the
They're
impact
limiting the
financial
scope of the
impact
use of the money. That's what they're doing.
scholarships. And allow recipients to use those scholarships for costs related to housing, transportation, and general living expenses, which are associated with attending post-secondary programs. Thank you for your attention. That concludes the presentation on the barriers and the mitigation considerations, which again, you will find in the report. And I'm happy to stand for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have Carson City? Did we lose Carson City?
We're still here.
Okay,
You
good.
just don't see
Start
us.
with you. Okay, we'll start with you, Assembly Member Anderson.
Thank you. So thank you both for the presentation. You bring up many important issues. I think my question comes from slide 9 of WestEd's presentation, but it actually will be both of you that might need to answer this question. You brought up on the second bullet that there is the responsiveness and availability of NDA staff is great, wonderful, but unexpected changes create the additional administrative burdens. So my question for both of you is, number one, do we know how many current employees of NDE are working with this very specific area? And so also how many openings there are at this time? And then my second question is that what you're talking about is because the number of openings, or is it because there's been some new people coming in the last 2 years? What are those unexpected changes that I'm kind of asking for a little bit more clarification about?
Sure, Jeff Brisky, ND, for the record, I can speak specifically for my office. Our office does run the scholarship programs. And it was a few years ago, I believe, at IFC, where Assemblymember Carlton graciously gave us a management analyst to help run the scholarship program. And since then, we have had 2 management analysts in that position, and that position is currently vacant in our office. The educator preparation programs professional who oversees that work, in addition to the management analyst who does the day-to-day work, that position is also currently vacant. So at this point, it is myself and an intern running these scholarship.
It's always one person and an intern. That's it. They don't have a state agency. This is
I
bullshit.
know with our teammates up in the north and
Yeah,
our
right.
fiscal office and our grants office, they are doing the best they can as
They're doing the
well.
best they can. That
With
reason.
The
Because
resources that
they've
they have.
not
Now specifically
adequate
about
support.
the other part of your question, I believe I believe that was talking about how many employees at NDE. I may have to phone a friend. I believe Deputy Peterson is up in the north. She may be able to answer that agency wide. And part of this too is just the administrative burden that it does put on our prep programs who don't have any administrative human capital to administer them at the ed preps programs themselves.
Thank you. And I believe Deputy McGill might be coming up. Okay, so we're gonna go try to find somebody. Thank you for that for that clarification that literally it is a group of 4 people, of which 2 are currently open. Is that what I'm understanding you say for your department in particular?
Yeah, for my, actually, 2 people that run the program, 1 management analyst, 2 that runs the day-to-day work, and 1 ed prep program professional that oversees that, and then myself as their director. So 3 total, but it's actually the management analyst that does most of the day-to-day work.
Thank you so much. And then my other question before we ask the Department of Ed to kind of go into all the staffing is during the West Ed presentation, there was the unexpected changes. Is it the staffing changes that you're speaking of or that seem to you hear about, or was it other issues that seem to cause those problems that you're mentioning about under coordination and communication on slide 9?
Sure, Jeff Brisky, ND, for the record. I will be able to speak for some of those changes. Part of it was due to the changes in Assembly Bill 400, where it did limit some ways that we can and cannot award that scholarship. So that was a major change there.
There's a major change there.
Other ways to, at the department, my office, it used to be with the scholarship, teach about a scholarship that would give out a 4-year award scholarship. And then we would do a lot of reconciliation to determine how much was left for the next year. We switched over to asking the prep programs to fill out an application to say, how much do you need for every student for that fiscal year only, rather than for all 4 years. And it has really cut down on the reconciliation time. And that I will take and say that that may not have been communicated as clearly as it could have been. I know personally I've made phone calls and helped them through that. And we've even implemented a procedure where we call each one of our prep institutions and walk them through the application on the phone while they're doing it. So I believe that has been helpful. Yes, we are going through growing pains, and every time there's a change, we try to do the best we can with that communication plan. Thank you.
Great. And I think we've got the Department of Ed now up here. So I still am just shocked that there's a group of 5 people and 2 of them are open. When it comes to the entire Department of Ed, what would you say currently are your openings or vacancies at this time?
Deputy Superintendent Megan Peterson. Currently, we have 25 vacancies within our department. I have 5 within my grants management unit and 3 in my fiscal office. I have other specifics if you would like.
I think the general idea works totally, that there's a large amount of openings in the department as well. Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Carson City, did you have any other questions? Okay, we will.
I'm
Yes.
sorry, I believe Assemblymember Koenig did have a question as well.
Go for it.
So it was mentioned that we're changing the qualifications for some of these scholarships to include GED only and to not have graduated from a Nevada high school. Are we
Okay.
having trouble filling all of the scholarship spots with people that meet these requirements as is? And we have to open it up to fill the scholarships, or do we have enough people who qualify as is to fill the scholarships at this point?
Thank you, Andrew Morrill, for the record. I appreciate the question. I believe we have representatives from some of the ed prep programs in attendance today who would be better able to answer that question.
Is there people approaching the?
Yes, there's somebody coming on up.
Okay, great.
Can you hear me? Winship Varner for the record. I'm with UNR. The question, just to reiterate, is do we have enough applicants to, without appealing to students that have graduated outside of Nevada for the scholarship amount? We have, I would say approximately about 15% of our applicants are from 15 to 20% of our applicants do not meet that requirement. Um, and
Yeah,
We're requesting funds.
yeah, that's right. Oh, what happened?
We don't really know at the time when we are making estimates and requesting funds for the scholarship, who those students are until after they apply and then they're vetted. And so we request more money than for these scholarship funds, and then learn later that we cannot apply those funds to those students. So
Yep, you learn
Those
later that
students
you
get
couldn't have give those
denied,
funds to those students. That's right. You couldn't do it.
then aren't applied to those.
That's right.
students. So.
And you just
did
figure
that
out how to
address
get
your
more money
question?
around.
So do we have the funding to give the scholarship to everyone who applies? Because if
No, you don't.
we only have funding, if it's limited, why are we expanding the parameters for more, to make more people eligible unless we can fund all the people who
Mhm.
are eligible under the current system?
How is that working?
I can only speak for UNR, but
He can only speak for
at
his
UNR,
university.
up until this current, we just received our awards for this upcoming um, uh, next fiscal year. And for the Teach Nevada specifically, we're going to exceed, the applicant numbers exceed the award amount that
We're going to exceed the award
that
amount.
were awarded for the Teach Nevada scholarship. So yes, we have more applicants than we do funds.
So that answers my question. If we are exceeding, if we have more applicants already, why are we looking to increase the applicant pool? Thank you.
I'm so sorry. Can you state your
If
name
you
again?
could, state. Yeah, thank.
Oh,
Well,
yes,
thank you, Assembly Member Anderson.
Winship Varner.
Mhm.
Let me just follow up with that. This is this current year. Previously, we've had, it's been the reverse. It's just because we have expanded our, with the recent changes, we have expanded our recruitment and our communication with students, especially with the Teach Nevada, since it's now open up to a broader pool since spring. Now we're stuck in that position. Prior, we've had more awarded funds than we had applicants for those funds.
Okay, so we will head up to Las Vegas. I know someone approached. Did you want to add something? Okay, please go ahead, state your name.
Lindsay Diamond for the record, University of Nevada, Reno, Department Chair of Educator Preparation and Associate Professor. I just wanted to follow up on Winship Varner's comments that to address the question that we do have more students who we have recruited to come into the teacher pipeline in hopes that they could have funding under the Teach Nevada scholarship, but due to those requirements of having to have graduated from a Nevada high school or also be in one of the neighboring communities close to our boundaries of the state, we do have to turn students away who then decide not to pursue the program due to the lack of funding and their personal situations.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Senator Lang? Thank you, Chair. I feel like I should know this, but I don't, so I'm just going to ask. Are there guardrails on this program that require people that are getting these scholarships to teach in Nevada for a certain period of time?
Thank you for the question, Jeff Brisky, NDE for the record. Yes, as outlined in NRS 391A, there are guardrails for the Teach Nevada scholarship, meaning that they have to stay in and teach at a Nevada public school for 5 years, 3 of which must be in a Title I school. And that's for Teach Nevada scholarship. And once they complete their 5 years, they get the 25% of their tuition reimbursed that they did not get up front. For the
25.
Nevada Teacher Advancement Scholarship, they had to have taught in a public school 2 years before they can apply for that scholarship. Then they must remain in a public school for 3 additional years, again, to obtain their 25% reimbursement of their tuition. Regarding incentivizing pathways to teaching in Assembly Bill 515, they must
See how they,
agree to
everything's
stay
done by
and
bill.
teach in the Nevada public school for 5 years. There's no tuition reimbursement on that one. And you will see that most of the students who receive the Teach Nevada scholarship, they're in their first 3 years of a traditional pathway, will get the incentivizing pathways to teacher on their last year. So that covers it either way, whether they get, most of them do get those scholarships. Thank you.
What's today? Today's the last day.
Thank you. And with that, I think we'll have you step back. Thank you very much for your presentation, gentlemen. Okay, moving forward, we're going to continue the conversation that we started last meeting, concerning the Teacher Academy College Pathway Program, also known as TACPP, as outlined in AB 428 from the last legislative session. We have representatives from CCSD to speak with us further about the district's effort to implement the bill's requirements. So please introduce yourself and go ahead when ready.
What's over? All right.
Thank you. Chair Bilbray Axelrod and esteemed members of the committee. My name is Dustin Mansell. I'm the Chief Academic Officer for the Clark County School District. I am joined by Ms. Gia Moore, our Assistant Superintendent of the College and Career and School Choice Division.
And school
We're
choice.
pleased to be here today and to present an overview of our implementation of the Teacher Academy College Pathway Program, a critical initiative designed to build a robust pipeline of future educators here in Nevada. The success.
Okay. I'm gonna stop sharing for a second because I want to say something. School choice is imperative. And we need to understand failure should not be an option. But when failure is an option, then you need to be doing everything you can do to get away from that letter grade of F. As a matter of fact, so many African-American children are just not making it. It is time for the community to come together and say, this is just unacceptable because we know who's working with our children and it is unacceptable. So I'm going to stop for right now because I have to wait for this to load up because they're playing games, so I can't stream live, but that's okay. I'll upload it and then I'll delete it so it doesn't fill my hard drive. But what are you going to do in the year of 2024? And I'm saying these are public meetings. Are you paying attention? Because they're creating pathways for people who are not even entitled to it. And what are you getting? Oh, I thought you knew. Absolutely nothing. Until we meet again, let's just say, until we meet again, we will, whatever, continue to talk. Y'all have a blessed day now. End the meeting for everyone.